This video was requested by Jake on my Spider-Man 3 video essay, so thank you, Jake. Also make sure to go check out that Spider-Man related video if you enjoy my Spider-Man video essay content. If you like a shout out or just a general mention like Jake, make sure to request video essays down below or content you'd like to see. Also helping me in this video is Jack from the Mad Pizza YouTube channel, and his channel will also be in the description.
Thanks for having me on here, Lewis. The pleasure is all mine.
In fact, we did a video together over on his channel as well. I highly recommend you go and check it out. In today's video, we're going to be going over why the original Spider-Man from 2002, directed by Sam Raimi and starring Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst, with Willem Dafoe as the Green Bean himself, is special in its own right, even when compared to its updated MCU counterpart, Spider-Man Homecoming, and how Homecoming, starring the new young Tom Holland, is also special in its own right. And now I'll hand you over to Jack for Spider-Man 2002.
Spider-Man, the first Spider-Man movie from 2000 and the best, I would say. Since the movie came out before the superhero genre had really been unfolded, Sam Raimi had the chance to add a little of his personal touch to the movie that many superhero films today, other than maybe Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 and 2, can't do. Sam Raimi's personal touches make this movie work. The cheesy moments are amazing. As Lewis said, this movie stars Tobey Maguire as the nerdy Peter Parker. Maguire captures the nerdiness of the character better than all other actors. And sure, he may be cheesy at times, but that's also what makes his character work, in my opinion. One of the fundamental character aspects of Peter Parker is that he is always shit on, by Flash or whomever it may be. He can never catch a break. Everything goes wrong in his life, yet he still chooses to be Spider-Man, even if he risks losing everything he has. He does what he feels like he has to do. With great power comes great responsibility. This is shown perfectly in Raimi's trilogy. This movie also stars Willem Dafoe as one of the best comic book villains ever, the Green Goblin. His performance is both over the top and menacing. He pulled both parts amazingly. When I think of Norman Osborn, Willem Dafoe is the first one to pop into my mind, but when I think of Vulture, I think the old man from the comics with the green spandex. Norman Osborn is much more memorable than the Vulture, and honestly, call me crazy, but I prefer the weird Power Rangers Green Goblin suit over the comics one. Also, the shots of Spider-Man swinging through New York are gorgeous, but in Homecoming there were none. What? He is Spider-Man and you're telling me you're not going to have a single shot of him swimming past skyscrapers? Another thing I feel like is great about this movie is how Peter is on his own. In the MCU, Peter has always had another superhero beside him, and it doesn't look like that's going to change anytime soon. Iron Man in Civil War and Homecoming and Infinity War and Endgame had him surrounded by tons of other superheroes, and in Far From Home he'll be teaming up with Nick Fury and Mysterio. We almost never get to see the MCU Spider-Man just being on his own. If there's a problem he can't fix in the MCU, Iron Man or some other superhero can just swoop in and do it instead. I mean, imagine the scene from Spider-Man 2 where he was holding the tree, and Iron Man just swoops in and saves the day. That would be so anticlimactic. Peter was always alone in the Raimi films. He was the only one there to stop the villains. He did it because no one else could. He felt like it was his responsibility to stop the villains. But in the MCU, Iron Man could have probably defeated the Vulture if Spider-Man wasn't there. And that just lessens the impact of Spider-Man defeating the Vulture, in my opinion. And sure, it would have been cool to see Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man team up with another superhero, but when he's surrounded by them at all times, always having backup, it feels like there's no way he can lose. Something I feel like we should have seen more of Spider-Man movies nowadays is him just saving people. People that have nothing to do with the plot, just people. People who accidentally walk in front of a car or fall off something or get caught in the villain's wrath. Not anyone in a burning building, though. That's already been done. Honestly, every time I watch Spider-Man, I feel a sense of comfort. This movie feels to me like what a Spider-Man movie should be. Peter Parker is Spider-Man. He was bitten by a radioactive spider, he built his suit on his own, and fought crime to avenge his Uncle Ben. With great power comes great responsibility. Yet in the MCU, we never see this. We hear of Uncle Ben's death, but it's never shown, so I can't act like it has been. It also feels like everything is given to Peter. His suit is fully technology, and was given him by Tony. I love the moment in Homecoming where Peter loses his suit and has to wear his crappy homemade one. In that moment, it feels like Peter is on his own, that everything isn't being handed to him. In that moment, it feels like Peter could lose. But Peter pulls through and defeats the Vulture on his own, showing Tony that he's not just a shadow to Iron Man. Peter is even offered an Avengers membership, but he declines, wanting to instead be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. But scratch that, give Peter his technological suit back and have him become a part of the Avengers in the next movie he's in. In Infinity War, they completely destroyed this development by having Spider-Man being thrilled to join the Avengers. And that was when I knew that the MCU Spider-Man could never beat the Sam Raimi Spider-Man. The first Spider-Man movie has and probably will always be my favorite. I love everything about it, and I could watch it over and over again without getting bored. Spider-Man is my Spider-Man movie.
Spider-Man Homecoming, the first solo movie outing for Peter Parker in the MCU. Starring Tom Holland and Michael Keaton, this movie brings something new to the table that we haven't really seen in the other Spider-Man movies prior to this one. Spider-Man Homecoming is way more grounded than the other Spider-Man movies. Now, you could say all the Spider-Man movies have been grounded to some extent, and I most certainly agree, but this one takes it to a whole new level. One problem that I initially had with this movie is it has no empowering swing through the city of New York, like the previous Spider-Man movies do. For example, in Spider-Man 2, when Peter gets his powers back, the emotion that you feel when Spider-Man swings towards a clock tower is immense. But Homecoming simply doesn't have this. Like I said, initially this was a problem for me, but now I don't think it's such a bad thing. One complaint that the original movies get is that they rush Peter's high school life so quickly, whereas Homecoming doesn't do this, as Peter will be in high school for the duration of Spider-Man Far From Home, and most likely in the third installment of the MCU Spider-Man as well. This means we don't need an empowering moment as of now, as this story is grounded and it's a coming of age story. That's what makes it different from Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, but it's also what makes it so special. Despite this, Homecoming still does have an empowering moment. This is when Peter is stuck under the rubble and he has to find the motivation to get out. But once again, this is something compared to the Raimi trilogy, Peter did with ease, showing the innocence and groundedness of this movie. Yet, this moment for the MCU's Peter Parker felt right at home. Grounded. Grounded is a term you probably heard me say a lot throughout my section of the video. And here's why specifically Tom Holland's version of the web slinger is this way. Homecoming is also the most comic accurate version of Spider-Man we've seen on the big screen. Now, before you guys get the wrong idea, I'm not saying this makes or breaks the character, as I really did love Andrew Garfield's version of the web slinger, and I'll probably touch upon that in a future video, but that's a reason why it's so special. This is the embodiment of a Spider-Man comic book. And put by the late Stan Lee himself, Tom Holland is exactly how Stan visioned him in the comics. Tom Holland also plays a really big role in selling this character in this movie, and I really think Tom brings something to the table that the others didn't. Tom embodies the kid from Queens. Even though there are bigger things like the Avengers out there, he will still look out for the little guy. In the end, what I think makes these two interpretations of Spider-Man so special is how different they are. The themes that they tackle and the overall tone of both characters and stories. Personally, in my opinion, I think that the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies are overall my favourite compared to what I've seen of Tom's Spider-Man in the MCU, but that does not sway the credit I feel Tom's version deserves. Spider-Man is a special character, and this right here proves there is no definitive version of the character. Spider-Man is a legacy, a name given to someone who treats great power with great responsibility.